Okay, here's some commentary for Fick, Tressie McMillan Cottom's text. There are a couple of things I think that are similar for this text as with particularly machine-readable me in terms of its discussion of neocolonialism and how that works. And also with Tough Guys, the idea that, well, it's dealing with gender, although in a very different way. And it's also dealing with race, something that we don't really get. Well, that's not true. We do get race in machine-readable me. I should be careful with that. So one of the things that tickles me the most about this is her contempt for LinkedIn. She is talking at the beginning of the chapter about how technology and efficiency is something that's really important, at least to certain people, right? That, and in fact, her pain is the thing that gets in the way of bureaucratic efficiency. So a lot of what we see with this text, machine readable me, it's also about a question of efficiency. That what governments want to do is to efficiently understand who people are, categorize them in a particular way so they can efficiently get rid of or deal with people, right? And so at one point, the irony in this book, there is an irony in this book, of people being dead people getting processed quicker than alive people. And again, it's a strange kind of a concept, the way that somehow the bureaucracies, that's the way that they deal with things more efficiently. And the idea that she hates LinkedIn, I find wonderful because I hate that place too. All right, so there's a term here I think that's important to explain, and in previous courses, editions of this course, I guess, I have talked about it earlier, but we didn't do it in this class. And it's the term neoliberalism. Now, there's a lot of times people will, when you hear the word liberal, you think that there's some kind of, I guess, progressive thing about it, and it's actually not. Neoliberalism is the concept that we should deregulate things, right? So that is any kind of oversight that we have that governs the way corporations work, we get rid of, right? Or at least limit. And that's something that is part of a neoliberal point of view. And so what does that mean? That means actually that we believe in market forces as the things that supply us with value. So anything that's profitable in the market is a good thing. And that's something that we should let the markets decide what something is valuable or not. At first blush, that might actually sound like a reasonable idea, but even a little bit of thinking into it can see some significant problems with that. And all you need to do is to think about what markets value. So a market, for instance, is not really interested in people at all. It's interested in markets. And so if you think about a government, even as cynical as we can be about government, and certainly Zara Rahman is skeptical about it, ostensibly governments are designed to work for people, and corporations are supposed to work for capital, right? So what we need to think about is, what is neoliberalism? Well, it's basically working for things rather than people. What are some of the problems potentially that we can see in constructing or basing our sense of social and political value on something that's profitable versus something that's not? Well, I always like to talk about this if we think about what are the more valuable things that we have in the world, and what are the more profitable things. So I think if you asked somebody, what do you think we should do as a society? Is it worthwhile? Should we spend more money, time, and energy in developing, advertising, and producing a drug that will potentially cure child leukemia, or at least extend the life, increase the value of life by the end of, for whatever quality of life? Should we do that, or should we spend more resources, advertising, and development and distribution in giving, in fixing erectile dysfunction? Now, I think only a crazy person would say, yeah, we should help old men get erections. Of course, you're looking at the kids. But the fact of the matter is that according to neoliberalism, the thing that makes all kinds of profit is the erectile dysfunction drug, and you make no money. In fact, you probably lose money trying to save kids from cancer. So that's the way we can see like a radical imbalance, and I'm being cheeky here. But if all things being equal, if we leave things up to the market, what gets profitable? Destroying the planet? Certainly. We can do that in all kinds of extractive ways. Having somebody take care of your children? Not so much. And so certain groups that actually do produce important, valuable things, teachers, garbage men, right? Things that provide things for society, don't get remunerated in the same way that something like a corporate lawyer might, who does really nothing of any real importance, I don't think. So that's the first thing. One of the things she says here is that technology makes our anxiety profitable, and then switches from that to the harrowing example of her in the hospital. So where in Machine Readable Me, we're looking at certain distinctions of race and the way categorizations of race put you in a particular place, and the way that the ones and zeros of digital technology take information and convert it into data. And we talk about the problem with that is this is people that are actually creating or using assumptions about who Tressie McMillan Cottom is. Because she's a black woman, all of these various stereotypes come in, and because she doesn't present in the way that they expect her to, they perceive her as incompetent, even though she's I think a PhD in sociology, she's a professor, right? She's married, all of these things that scream competence, she's considered incompetent. So another connection with Raman is that one of the things that she says is the problem with the way technology works now is not a flawed system, but rather a social bias that creates that system. So here we're seeing the kind of bedrock of that, right? Where the people that are the nurses and the doctors multiple times say, one person says that he's going to leave if she doesn't be quiet. Absolutely no interest in being sensitive in that way. And then there's the multiple misdiagnoses. The first one is like, oh, this is normal. If you don't have pain in your back, go home. Spotting is normal. She comes back again and says, it's because you're too fat, he basically says. The next thing he says, oh, you're constipated, so go home, try to go to the bathroom. And then she comes back again, and they say it's something that you ate. So all of these three things are massive misdiagnoses, and then they excuse themselves saying, look, it's not our fault, we couldn't do anything because you didn't tell us you were pregnant. It's your fault, basically. And the contempt for the competency of this person. So these are the people ostensibly, here we see on the ground floor, people that are creating the databases that will eventually turn us into ones and zeros. So not only do we have this radical problem of information being turned into data, we also have biases that at the informational level. So before that, these people that are actually one-on-one interacting with Tressie McMillan Cottom are in fact misdiagnosing based on biases that they already have before that. And, pretty clear that it's kind of racism. Some of the numbers I think were stark, where we see in the United States that, and it's more acute in the United States and Canada. I still think it's pretty similar here. The equivalent kind of problem would probably be First Nations people in Canada, who would be treated with the same kind of dismissal and contempt. So where 243 I think % higher for kids for black babies to die in pregnancy more so than white people, white kids, and I think one of the OBGYNs says that twice as many black children die in the first year of life than white children, which is again kind of a stark, shocking kind of contrast. And I think if you wanted to think about this as a way that you could develop a position about, would be to say, what's the equivalence in Canada? That might require a little bit of research, which is not required, but could be kind of fun, to say, what are some of the ways that First Nations people are treated with a similar kind of contempt, or at least treated with a similar kind of understanding of incompetence, that because you look this way, these are the preconceived notions that we have about you, and therefore consider you as incompetent. Okay.